The photograph arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under the door of McDeliver Logistics like a serpent sliding into paradise. Brenda found it when she arrived at 6 a.m., her coffee still steaming, her mind already running through the day's logistics. The envelope was unmarked, expensive, the kind of cream-colored paper that whispered old money and older secrets. Inside was a single photo, slightly faded, dated 15 years ago based on the timestamp in the corner. Richard was in it. Younger, harder around the edges, standing next to a beautiful woman with cascading dark hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But it wasn't the woman that made Brenda's blood run cold, it was the background. A courthouse. And in Richard's hand, barely visible but unmistakable, was a marriage certificate. Brenda's hands trembled as she turned the photo over. 3 words were scrawled on the back in elegant script, still legally married. Her phone buzzed. Marcus's name flashed across the screen, but she couldn't answer. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe past the sudden constriction in her chest. Richard had told her everything, about his mother's abandonment, his father's death, the business partner's betrayal. But he'd never mentioned a wife. The office door chimed. Catherine walked in, took one look at Brenda's face, and froze. What happened? Wordlessly, Brenda handed her the photograph. Catherine's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something that looked like dread. Oh God. Isabelle. You knew. Brenda's voice came out hollow. Yes. But Brenda, it's not what you think. They've been separated for 13 years. She left him right after his business partner destroyed everything. Just disappeared. Richard tried to find her to finalize the divorce, but she vanished completely. His lawyers have been searching. 13 years. Brenda felt something cracking inside her chest. 13 years and he never thought to mention he has a wife. Technically, yes, but... There's no but, Catherine. We've been together for over a year. A year. We're building a life together. I have a key to his apartment. We talk about the future, about marriage, about... Her voice broke. How could he keep this from me? The door opened again. Richard walked in, his face lighting up when he saw her before immediately darkening as he registered her expression and the photograph now lying on her desk between them like evidence at a crime scene. Brenda? Is it true? She hated how small her voice sounded. Are you married? The pause before he answered told her everything. Legally, yes. But Brenda, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything. She stood, grabbing her jacket. You lied to me. I never lied. I just... Omission is lying, Richard. For a year, you let me believe we could have a future when you're still tied to someone else. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. Who sent this? Does she want you back? Is that what this is? I don't know who sent it. I haven't heard from Isabelle in over a decade. Until now, apparently. Brenda moved toward the door, needing space, needing air, needing anything but the suffocating weight of this revelation. I need time to think. Brenda, please. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. Don't tell me it's not important. You had a year to tell me the truth, Richard. A year of chances, and you chose to hide this. So right now, I need you to respect what I need, which is space. She walked out before he could respond, leaving him standing in her office surrounded by delivery schedules and the ruins of the trust they'd built together. Isabelle Rousseau, she'd reclaimed her maiden name after leaving, was even more beautiful in person than in photographs. She appeared at Douglas Enterprises 3 days after the photograph arrived, gliding through the lobby like she'd never left, like 13 years of absence was merely an extended vacation. Richard was in a meeting when Catherine interrupted, her face pale. Sir, I'm sorry, but... Hello, darling. Isabelle's voice was honey and smoke, her French accent still pronounced despite years in America. Long time no see. Every head in the conference room turned. Richard felt his entire body go rigid, muscle memory from a time when her presence meant danger, volatility, the kind of chaos he'd spent years trying to escape. "Gentlemen, we'll resume this afternoon," he said, his voice carefully controlled. The board members filed out, shooting curious glances at the striking woman in the doorway. When they were alone, Richard finally spoke. "What do you want, Isabelle? Is that any way to greet your wife?" She moved into the room with practiced grace, trailing her fingers along the conference table. "I've missed you, mon cher. Answer the question." She laughed, the sound bitter. "Still so cold. I'd hoped you might have warmed up after all these years. Or does that only apply to your little delivery girl?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Leave Brenda out of this." "Brenda?" Isabelle tested the name like wine. "How common. Tell me, does she know about our marriage? About the prenup you never enforced because you were too proud to chase me down? About the fact that, technically, I'm entitled to half of everything you've built since we married?" His blood ran cold. "What are you talking about? You didn't know." Her smile was sharp. "When we married, you were so in love, so trusting. You signed a prenup, yes, but with a sunset clause. After 5 years of marriage, it becomes void and we revert to equal partnership in all assets. We've been married 15 years, Richard. Which means I own half of Douglas Enterprises. That's not possible. We've been separated, but never divorced. And separation doesn't invalidate marriage, as I'm sure your expensive lawyers will confirm." She pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "I've already had 3 firms review the documents. It's airtight." Richard opened the folder with shaking hands. Legal document after legal document, all confirming what she'd said. His own signature at the bottom of each one, younger and stupider and so catastrophically trusting. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Why after all these years?" Isabelle's expression softened slightly, showing a glimpse of something real beneath the predatory smile. "Because I'm dying, Richard. Stage 4 cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And I need money for treatment, money I gambled away years ago. Money you have in abundance." For a moment, Richard saw the girl he'd fallen in love with at 23, brilliant, damaged, desperate to prove she was more than her abusive father's daughter. Then the moment passed, and he was left with the woman who'd abandoned him when he needed her most. "I'll write you a check," he said. "Name the amount. But I'm not giving you half my company." "It's not giving, darling. It's acknowledging what's already mine." She moved closer, her perfume achingly familiar. "But I'm willing to negotiate. Sign over 20% of the company and $10 million, and I'll expedite our divorce. You'll be free to marry your courier girl with my blessing. And if I refuse, then I'll tie you up in court for the next 2 years, drain your resources, and destroy your relationship in the process. By the time we're done litigating, Brenda will have moved on, your company will be destabilized, and I'll still get my share." Her smile turned sad. "I don't want to hurt you, Richard. But I'm out of options. The treatment I need isn't covered by insurance. It's experimental, expensive, and it's my only chance." Richard stared at her, this ghost from his past now threatening his future. "I need time. You have 48 hours. After that, my lawyers file papers, and this becomes very public and very ugly." She moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. About how I left, about what I'm doing now. But survival makes monsters of us all." She disappeared, leaving Richard alone with the documents that could destroy everything he'd built, with Brenda, with his company, with the warm life he'd finally learned to live. Brenda hadn't answered Richard's calls in 3 days. She'd thrown herself into work, expanding McDeliver Logistics with a ferocity that worried Marcus and terrified her employees. If she stopped moving, stopped working, she'd have to think about the photograph, about the lies, about the future she'd imagined crumbling like sand. She was reviewing delivery routes at midnight when her office door opened. Marcus walked in, followed by a woman Brenda didn't recognize, petite, stylish, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Bren, this is Aisha Okafor. She's a private investigator." Brenda looked up, exhausted. "Marcus, what?" "You're not the only one who got a mysterious photograph," Aisha interrupted, her British accent crisp. "Richard Douglas received one too. Different image, same message. And I've been hired to find out who's orchestrating this and why." "Hired by whom?" "Catherine Chen, Richard's assistant. She's convinced this is a setup, that someone is manipulating both of you." Aisha pulled out her tablet, showing a series of photographs. These were all delivered to various tabloids, business rivals, and gossip sites over the past week. "Someone wants your relationship destroyed very publicly." Brenda studied the images, her and Richard at restaurants, leaving his apartment, kissing in the snow. Intimate moments stolen and weaponized. "Who would do this?" she asked. "That's what I'm trying to find out. But here's what I know so far." Isabelle Russo resurfaced 1 week ago after 13 years off the grid. She's claiming rights to half of Douglas Enterprises based on a prenup sunset clause. She's also dying of cancer and needs millions for treatment. "So she's desperate," Marcus said. "Desperate people are dangerous," Aisha agreed. But here's the interesting part. 3 days before she reappeared, someone made significant deposits into her offshore accounts. $2 million from an untraceable source. Brenda's mind raced. Someone paid her to come back. Or paid her to leverage her legal position. Either way, this isn't just about a sick woman needing money. Someone wants Douglas Enterprises destabilized, and they're using Isabelle and your relationship to do it. But who? Aisha pulled up another image, a man in his 50s, distinguished, with cold eyes. Thomas Whitmore. He was Richard's original business partner, the one who embezzled millions and tried to destroy the company 15 years ago. "I thought he was in prison," Brenda said. "Released 6 months ago. And according to his social media, which he's been very active on, he's got a new venture capital firm and a burning desire to prove he's still relevant." Aisha's expression hardened. Revenge is a powerful motivator. And what better way to destroy Richard than to use his past and present against him? Marcus leaned forward. "So what do we do?" "We prove it. We trace the money, document the conspiracy, and we expose Whitmore before he can do any more damage." Aisha looked at Brenda directly. "But I need to know, are you willing to work with Richard on this? Because we can't win if you two are fractured." Brenda thought about the photograph, about the lies of omission, about the year they'd built together. She thought about Richard's speech at the press conference, his vulnerability, the way he'd chosen her over his perfect reputation. "He should have told me," she said quietly. "Yes," Aisha agreed. "He absolutely should have. But consider this, a man who spent 13 years trying to erase a mistake, who built walls so high to protect himself, might have been terrified of the one thing that could destroy what he'd found with you. Not excusing it. Just offering perspective." Brenda closed her eyes. "Set up a meeting. All of us. I want the full story, no more omissions. And then we'll decide how to move forward." They met at Richard's penthouse at dawn, neutral territory that held memories of better times. Richard looked like he hadn't slept in days, his usual immaculate appearance rumpled, his eyes shadowed. "Thank you for coming," he said to Brenda. She didn't respond, just sat across from him with Marcus and Aisha flanking her like protective sentries. Catherine sat beside Richard, equally exhausted. "Tell me everything," Brenda said. "From the beginning. No omissions this time." Richard took a breath. "I met Isabelle when I was 23, just after my father died. I was drowning in grief and debt, and she was this brilliant, damaged artist who seemed to understand loss. We got married 6 months later, too fast, too young, too desperate for connection." He paused. "I loved her. Or I thought I did. But she was volatile, unpredictable. There were good days and terrible days, and I never knew which I'd wake up to. Why didn't you divorce her when she left? Brenda asked. Pride, initially. I didn't want to admit another failure after my business partner's betrayal. Then I couldn't find her, she disappeared completely, changed her name, left no trail. My lawyers searched for years. Eventually, I just wanted to forget she existed. I told myself the marriage was dead even if it wasn't legally dissolved. That was wrong. I see that now. Why didn't you tell me? This was the question that mattered. Richard met her eyes, and she saw genuine remorse there. Because I was terrified of losing you. You were the first real thing in my life in over a decade, and I was convinced that if you knew I came with this kind of baggage, a missing wife, unresolved legal mess, all this chaos from my past, you'd walk away. So I told myself it didn't matter since she was gone and I'd never see her again. I convinced myself that omission wasn't the same as lying. He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I was a coward. And I'm sorry. Brenda felt tears threatening but held them back. You should have trusted me with the truth. I know. I'm asking you to trust me with this truth now. I love you. Only you. Isabelle is my past, a mistake I'm trying to correct. You're my future, if you'll still have me. Before Brenda could respond, Aisha cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we have bigger problems. Thomas Whitmore isn't just orchestrating this for revenge. He's planning a hostile takeover. He's been quietly buying up Douglas Enterprises stock through shell companies. With Isabelle claiming 50% ownership and the resulting chaos, stock prices will plummet. That's when he'll strike, buying up enough shares to take control of the board. Catherine gasped. That's why he paid Isabelle to return. He needed the chaos her reappearance would cause. Exactly. And it gets worse, he's been feeding information to tabloids, setting up photographers to catch Brenda and Richard in compromising positions, manufacturing this entire crisis to destabilize the company and destroy their relationship. Aisha pulled up financial records on her tablet. I've traced the payments. They all lead back to Whitmore's new firm. Richard's face had gone pale. How do we stop him? We need Isabelle to testify that she was paid to leverage her position. We need documentation of Whitmore's stock purchases. And we need to go public with all of it before he can complete the takeover. Aisha looked at Richard. But it means exposing your marriage, the prenup, all of it. Your privacy will be shredded. I don't care about privacy, Richard said immediately. I care about stopping Whitmore and protecting what I've built, the company and my relationship with Brenda. Then we need to talk to Isabelle, Aisha said. And hope she's willing to turn on the man paying for her treatment. They found Isabelle at a boutique hotel in Chelsea, looking frailer than she had 3 days ago. The cancer was aggressive, stealing her vitality in real time. I wondered when you'd figure it out, she said when they arrived. She was sitting by the window, wrapped in a silk robe, her beauty now ethereal rather than vibrant. Thomas always did underestimate everyone around him. He paid you, Richard said without preamble. He did. $2 million for treatment, with more promised if I could drag you through a public legal battle. He was very clear about wanting to destroy you. Isabelle smiled sadly. I took the money. I'm dying, Richard. Morality becomes flexible when you're facing the void. Brenda stepped forward, surprising herself. How long do you have? For months, maybe. The treatment might buy me 6 if I'm lucky. Isabelle studied her. You're even prettier in person. He's lucky to have found you. Will you help us? Brenda asked. Will you testify against Whitmore? Why would I? He's paying for my treatment. You're asking me to choose between revenge on an ex-husband and survival. We can pay for your treatment, Richard said. Every penny. Experimental trials, private care, whatever you need. But you have to tell the truth about Whitmore's involvement. Isabelle laughed, the sound brittle. You do that? After what I'm putting you through. You're sick and desperate. Whitmore is calculating and cruel. There's a difference. Richard moved closer. Isabelle, I know I wasn't a good husband. I was cold and closed off even before you left. But you deserve better than how things ended, and you deserve better than being Whitmore's pawn now. For a long moment, Isabelle was silent. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. He gave me this. Documentation of his stock purchases, communications about the takeover plan, recordings of our conversations. He was so confident I'd stay loyal that he didn't bother hiding anything. She held it out. Take it. Expose him. And Richard? The divorce papers are already drawn up. I signed them this morning. You just need to add your signature. Richard took the flash drive with shaking hands. Why? Because I'm dying, and I'd like to do at least one decent thing before I go. Consider it my apology for how I left. She looked at Brenda. Take care of him. He's colder than he should be, but there's warmth underneath if you're patient enough to find it. I know, Brenda said softly. I've seen it. The press conference was scheduled for the next morning. Richard stood at the podium again, but this time Brenda stood beside him, their hands clasped, presenting a united front. 2 weeks ago, Richard began, someone attempted to destroy my company and my relationship through manipulation and blackmail. I'm here today to expose that conspiracy and set the record straight. He laid it all out, the marriage to Isabelle, her disappearance, Whitmore's return and revenge plot, the money trail, everything. Aisha had provided documentation for every claim, making it impossible to dismiss as fabrication. Thomas Whitmore thought he could use my past to destroy my future. He thought he could manipulate a dying woman into being his weapon. He thought wrong. Richard's voice was steel. I'm not ashamed of my mistakes. I'm ashamed I didn't confront them sooner. But I'm confronting them now, publicly, so that everyone can see the truth. He turned to Brenda. Most importantly, I owe an apology to this woman. Brenda MacDonald, who I should have trusted with the truth from the beginning. Who deserved honesty instead of omission. Who stood by me even when I didn't deserve it. His voice cracked slightly. I love you. I should have said that first, before anything else. I love you, and I'm sorry. Brenda squeezed his hand, tears streaming down her face. Into the microphone, she said, I love you too. Even when you're an idiot. The room erupted in laughter and camera flashes. Questions flew, but Richard's legal team stepped forward to handle them. The important part was done, the truth was out, documented, undeniable. Within hours, federal prosecutors announced an investigation into Whitmore's activities. His firm's assets were frozen. The hostile takeover collapsed before it could begin. Douglas Enterprises' stock dipped briefly, then recovered as investors realized the company was stronger than the scandal. Richard's honesty had, once again, become his greatest asset. 2 months later, Brenda sat in the hospital waiting room while Isabelle underwent another round of treatment. It had become a strange ritual, she and Richard taking turns keeping Isabelle company through the worst of it, building an unlikely friendship from the ashes of the past. You don't have to do this, Isabelle said during one visit, her voice weak but grateful. I know, Brenda replied. But you're part of Richard's story, which makes you part of mine now. And no one should face this alone. The treatment was working, marginally. Isabelle had gained back some weight, some color. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about another 6 months, maybe more. Richard appeared in the doorway with coffee for all of them. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago, a quiet affair in a judge's chambers. Isabelle had hugged them both after, whispering be happy before being wheeled back to treatment. How are you feeling? Richard asked Isabelle. Like death, darling. But slightly less imminent death than before. She smiled at them. Have you set a date yet? Brenda and Richard exchanged glances. They'd been talking about marriage, about making it official, but something had held them back. We're waiting, Brenda said. Want to make sure we've dealt with all the skeletons first. There are always more skeletons, Isabelle said wisely. The question is whether you'll face them together. Later, as they walked through Central Park in the autumn air, Richard pulled Brenda close. She's right, you know. About the skeletons. I know. But I also know we're stronger now than we were before. This whole mess, it forced us to be completely honest. No more walls, no more secrets. Brenda looked up at him. I don't regret it. Any of it. Even the painful parts. I do, Richard said. I regret hurting you. Then let's make a deal, no more omissions. Even if the truth is hard or scary or could hurt us. We tell each other everything, immediately, always. Deal. He kissed her forehead. I have something to tell you, actually. Brenda's heart jumped. What? Marcus's app is exceeding projections by 40%. I want to increase our investment and help him expand nationally. She laughed, relieved and delighted. That's wonderful. Wait, is there more? One more thing. Richard knelt down and Brenda's breath caught. I was planning to wait, to make this perfect and romantic. But Isabelle's right, there's never a perfect time. There's just now, and us, and the choice to keep choosing each other. He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light. Brenda MacDonald, you collided into my life like a force of nature and melted every wall I'd built. You make me want to be brave, to be warm, to be real. Will you marry me? Will you keep calling me out when I'm being an idiot and loving me anyway? Brenda dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. Yes. 1,000 times yes. On one condition. Anything. We write our own vows. And they include a clause about always being honest, even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying, Richard agreed. They kissed there in the middle of the path, autumn leaves falling around them like confetti, two people who'd survived collision and conspiracy to find something real and lasting and worth fighting for. The wedding was small, intimate, just family and close friends gathered in the same restaurant where they'd had their first real date. Catherine officiated, because of course she did, her smugness at having predicted their relationship from the start now legendary. Isabelle sat in the front row, thinner but alive, having defied the odds long enough to see this moment. She'd become an unexpected friend to both of them, a reminder that people were more complicated than their worst moments. Marcus gave Brenda away, whispering you deserve this as he placed her hand in Richard's. Their vows were honest and imperfect, acknowledging scars and mistakes and the work still ahead. But they were real, spoken before people who knew their full story and loved them anyway. I promise to always tell you the truth, Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. Even when I'm scared. Especially when I'm scared. Because you've taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of everything strong. I promise to keep melting your ice, Brenda replied, smiling through tears. And to let you warm my fire when it burns too hot. We're better together than apart, and I promise to remember that even when things get hard. When they kissed, the room erupted in applause. Catherine was openly crying. Marcus was grinning like he'd won the lottery. Even Isabelle managed a smile, her eyes bright with genuine happiness for the couple she'd almost destroyed. Later, as they danced to their song, something soft and slow that matched the snow beginning to fall outside, Richard whispered in Brenda's ear. Thank you for not giving up on me. On us. Thank you for being worth fighting for. They held each other close, two people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfection, it was about choosing honesty over comfort, vulnerability over walls, and each other over everything else. The photographer captured them in that moment, Brenda's head on Richard's shoulder, his arms wrapped around her waist, both of them smiling like they'd finally come home after a long journey through ice and fire. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better than that. It was real. And it was only the beginning. If you loved Brenda and Richard's journey through scandal, secrets, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe for more stories about love that conquers all, even the hardest truths. Drop a comment telling us which moment had you on the edge of your seat, and hit that like button if you believe in fighting for what matters. New chapters drop every week, so subscribe now and join us for the next adventure in love, trust, and transformation.